My next guest is Lorena Seidel. Lorena is a social emotional learning consultant, a certified Montessori teacher, trained positive discipline educator, a mindfulness-based stress reduction teacher, and a mother of three. She helps adults create a more positive relationship with young children in a more peaceful home and classroom environment. Lorena has helped thousands of parents and teachers stay strong, calm, and remain effective even at their most stressful moments. She has guided them to develop their children's social, emotional, and life skills. Lorena has transformed the home life and the parent-child relationships of hundreds of families for life. A sought-after speaker who has delivered keynote addresses and lectures at local, national, and international conferences, such as the American Montessori Association and British Columbia Montessori Association, Lorena speaks at libraries, organizations, and mom groups, such as MOPS and Holistic Moms Network. Lorena gives talks at a variety of Montessori and independent schools, including Sacred Heart University. She has been interviewed for several online summits, including being featured alongside Simon Sinek for the Early Childhood Leadership Conference. Lorena's articles have been featured at NYMetroParents, Motherly, Welcome Parenthood, and more. Lorena is the author of The Purposeful Child, a quick and practical parenting guide to creating the optimal home environment for young children. Lorena lives in Connecticut with her husband and three daughters. Welcome to the podcast, Lorena.
Thank you so much for having me here. Pleasure and an honor to be speaking with your community. I'm very glad.
Well, I'm really excited to learn more about some of your work and diving deeper into some of the issues a lot of educators see and working with parents. But we'll start off first with the question I ask everybody. And tell me about a time when you were in the trenches and managed to crawl out.
Okay, this is a really good question. I think as a parent, we feel like we're always in the trenches. Well, my story goes back a long way. I think that for me, I remember coming home with that baby. And so much love and reverence for that child, my husband driving like 15 miles an hour. I'm carrying this most precious, item and precious cargo. And I had, vowed to be an amazing mom, a patient mom. And for me, that was big because I grew up in a very emotionally unintelligent family. A lot of the shaming and blaming and threats and punishment, spanking, and on and on. I grew up in South Brazil, and discipline there looks a little different. Even the most caring parents, it's pretty common for them to use this very punitive methods. So I really knew I wanted to be different, and I vowed to be this great mom. And of course, brought home that baby with the best intentions. But then a couple of years went by, and there I was, yelling and threatening and bribing and shaming and wanting to put that 2-year-old then on a timeout. And all of a sudden, remember that it hit me. And I asked myself, what happened? How did I go from bringing that baby with such love and reverence and respect to now speaking to her this way? And of course, life happened. The issues happened. We had another baby already by then. They were only 18 months apart. So of course, I was getting hit with all of the everyday parenting challenges of raising a newborn and the sleep deprivation, nursing, and then having a 2-year-old who is now saying no and having a tantrum, trying to hurt the baby, right? So that was the moment for me that I felt like, here I am, I'm going to be, and I'm going to end up replicating that very type of parenting I fought so long and hard to not replicate that. And that was the moment for me when I figured it out. It really didn't matter how much I knew and had studied. I had already been in the classroom for several years as a Montessori teacher. I had my master thesis in social emotional learning. So in theory, I should have been better.
Yeah.
And then the reality was that I had been programmed. I realized, this is way bigger than just willpower and my education and training and background, I actually come with a blueprint. I've been programmed and wired to react, to, have these patterns of control or permissiveness at times and flip-flopping between them, and reactivity and snapping and all of that. I realized that, and then I figured out I wasn't alone. As I worked with thousands of parents, I picked up that same pattern that, okay, we all have the best intentions, but not the best mindset, not the best strategies, and not the best emotional intelligence. And that was for me that turning point. And I crawl out of there by doing a lot of the, doubling down on my research and figuring it out, how to rewire my that, how to become emotionally intelligent, and how to get better tools so I replace those, the old model we kind of inherited, or, replacing the common tools for discipline. So that was how I got out of there.
That's so inspiring to hear, because, I was that parent as well, with kids that were 19 and a half months apart. And although it's hard to remember now, they're 12 and 14, but that stress that you feel, and you don't want to repeat some of the mistakes that your own parents made, but you see yourself going down that same, stressful cycle. And I think, you said you were becoming more aware of your own emotional intelligence. And even though you'd studied a lot before, but rewiring your own reactions, your own emotional intelligence, I think that's so important as parents. Because I think we're in a lot of the same situation. Like, you were an educator a long time before you became parent. And I think when we're educated, you have our master's degree, and then we've taught, we feel like we know what there is to know about kids, right? But whether, you teach the younger kids, or, I taught a lot in high school, you don't always know how to react with the infant or the toddler, and just that stress that comes with them being at home, and, getting them to sleep, those types of things. So.
I was totally overly confident I was like, this is gonna be a breeze. And then of course reality hit me and humbled me quite a bit.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about our students. So we're flipping it from our own kids, but talking about emotionally intelligent students. This past school year, 21-22, a lot of teachers and administrators have experienced the kids are learning how to do school again after the pandemic shutdown. And I think going into the 22-23 school year, teachers and administrators are really wanting to rewire, I guess you could say, their kids, their students, and not necessarily doing things the same way, but how can we as a school community avoid some of those, I would say, low-level misbehaviors that come with kids forgetting how to do school.
Yes. Well, I think that for me, it boils it down to something very simple. I think that when we feel better, we do better. Yeah. So happy people, happy children, happy students, happy teachers, happy parents, just happy people. They don't need to pick fights. They don't need to put people down. They don't need to be aggressive. They're not violent. If you're happy, you're not feeling jealous. You're not, so many of these behavioral things wouldn't be there if they were feeling really good. So I think that the secret to help our children behave better as they come back, and maybe they forgot how to do school, maybe they're just really, impacted by the changes and the life changes of the past couple of years. I know the parents, teachers, students, everybody were put to the test with this. And I think everyone's emotional health, emotional well-being has been shaken a bit, and everybody's feeling that in some extent. And I think that if we just focus on helping children feel good, I think as they feel better, they do better. So I would always say that focusing on creating that environment that is a thriving learning environment that supports the emotional well-being of everyone is the secret to create this place where children are cooperating, are listening, are respectful and kind. I think once you have that thriving environment, everyone can blossom, right? We know that just like a plant, right? They have everything they need. That plant has everything it needs to blossom. It's just about creating the right conditions, putting it in the right environment and under the best circumstances for it to blossom. So I always tell educators that that's really the work that we have cut out for us, is to figure it out. How do we create the best conditions in our classrooms and schools and at homes? That's it.
Yeah. And I think that goes along with creating consistency. That was my next topic. I wanted to discuss, teachers can start the school year with the best intentions in mind, but a lot of the time it falls away, after the first month. So, being consistent in the classrooms, adopting a unified and universal message within the community, not only the school community among the teachers, but also that message going out to the parents. How can teachers work together, and how can admin work with the teachers in a school to have that win-win solution and unified message?
Yes. Well, I think that we sometimes we all come with our different backgrounds, our different set of experiences, set of beliefs, limiting beliefs, and and knowledge, all of that. And every time that we are in a situation where we have to make relationships work, these, being in different pages can be a problem, right? That being either the parents not being on the same parenting page, teachers not being on the same teaching page, but then the parent and the adult and the child, right? Either the parent-child or the teacher-child relationship. And then when you think of a classroom full of students, right? Everybody with different beliefs and different backgrounds, having to create this, unified language and approach it can be really tricky. So I like to think it this way, educating everyone at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like opening the opportunity. So when I work with schools, I come in and I give the workshop for the parents as well as the teachers, and then work with the students. So everybody's receiving the same information. Everyone is sharing and out and being able to understand each other and develop that connection. So when we have a very, there's continuity, there is a coherent, approach, and there is a universal language for approach and behavior, a very consistent methods and strategies for addressing, the root reasons behind the children's negative behavior. And not just the children, right? Because we, when I work with school leaders, there's teacher relationships that can sometimes can be tough. We have faculty meetings where we are still seeing so many of these, it's just relationship issues. It's miscommunication, mistrust, resentment, perceived favoritisms, all the things that we see in the home environment, right? We see it in a bigger scale in a school, because we just have all these moving pieces, so many people trying to work together towards one common goal. So I find that to create that universal language, to have the consistency, to eliminate the mixed messages and all of that, come together, to train together, so everybody elevates their skills kind of at the same time. And then everyone takes that approach and implement together side by side, so they can keep each other accountable, they can support each other, they can learn from each other, but everybody is in that same mindset and that same, thought of, okay, we're working together as a team. It's not the students against the teachers. It's not the teachers against teachers, or the administration that the teachers are fighting with, or parents feeling like the school is not on the same page. So we sometimes see the parents as threatening, oh, they're just trying to get to us, or they don't understand, we're not. So it's when we shift to those beliefs that we have about each other in the school environment, then we can, create that continuity, that universal language. But we have to all get in the same team. And often, after working with thousands of teachers and hundreds of schools, there's a lot of these underlying, just parent and teacher conference. Because sometimes that is there's conflicts, there's tension, there is that sense of like it's the parent against the teacher somehow. And then teachers sometimes don't feel like they can trust each other in that environment, or they don't trust the administration. The administration don't think they can count on the teachers in some ways. And the students are always, trying to, the teachers see the students as, okay, it's them against me. When we really just work together. So there's just so many of these underlying, and of course we all do a really good job, and we try to keep everything really, friendly and political as we can. But that creating an environment of trust, an environment where everyone feels that they can thrive, social emotional.
How can some schools have emotional intelligence training for students so they can understand their own behavior? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yes. Okay. So there's many different ways to approach this work with the students. I'll tell a story because I think that will actually help. So for me, when it was many years ago, one of my children got a little cut on her chin. She slipped on a bench and hit her chin and got a little cut. I had to take her to the emergency room, and it was already like nighttime. We were there for quite a bit of time, and it was big enough and deep enough that needed stitches, but not big enough that would even qualify for like the plastic surgeon to come. It wouldn't even be covered by the insurance. So I remember calling my husband and saying, do you really want the plastic surgeon to come, because it might not be covered? And he's like, absolutely. We don't want her to have a scar in her face. Yeah. And he was feeling a bit guilty because she had gotten hurt right there in front of him with him. So there we called the plastic surgeon on call that night. She showed up. She was like 9 months pregnant, this poor doctor. And she stitched my little one up, and she told me, okay, now for 7 days, you have to put on this cream twice a day, and then come back to my office for us to take the stitches. So we did that. And then 7 days later, I took time from work. I took her out of school, out of preschool at the time. We went there. After she took the stitches out, she said, well, now you should massage the scar every day to break down the scar tissue, and put on every time she goes out. And in that moment, I just remember sitting there in that office and thinking, wow, this is a lot of work for 1 centimeter cut, right? For one little physical injury. And I put all this time, the 3 hours in the ER, the 7 days putting the cream, back in the office. Now I'm going to be massaging this and putting sunscreen for who knows how long. It just felt like this is a lot of work for, a lot of effort, a lot of time, and even a lot of money, because it was like a $2,000 bill after that ER visit. And for this physical injury. And then I realized, hey, all this, so she's not left with a physical scar, right? With a scar on her face. But what am I doing to make sure that she's not left with emotional scars? How much time, how much energy, focus, effort, and support am I giving her? And I realized very little to none. In fact, when she's upset, I'm quick to say, you're okay, you're fine, don't be silly. There's no reason to be scared or worried or whatever it is. Of course, that's not true. We love you, and on and on, right? We talk our kids out of feeling what they feel. We try to dismiss things. And when I go to schools to work with the students, that's the first work, is shifting the mindset for the entire school to really value the emotional injuries as much as we do our physical injuries. So I come in and work with this group of students, and from like pre-K all the way through 8th grade, I give the same lesson. I mean, I have dozens of lessons, but this one lesson I'm going to tell you about, I can work with the same lesson for all these ages. So in fact, the very first lesson is that I come in and I ask the students, what do you know to do for your body when your body gets hurt? And they're so quick, even the little ones. Oh, we have to wash it. We have to put a cream. We have to put a Band-Aid. We might need ice. We might need, to go to the doctor if it's something that maybe needs a cast, if something is broke or might need stitches. They know. And I said, okay, good. What happened if we don't take care of these physical injuries? What happened if you break your arm, but you don't do anything? And they say, oh, it will get worse. Or maybe it will set, but not the right way, and you won't be able to move it, or it will hurt for a long time. I say, okay, the cut might get dirty and infected, fester. It could even kill you, right? Mm-hmm. And then I say, okay, right. So time alone doesn't do the trick, right? So that's a mindset shift there for schools, that sometimes when it comes to emotional injuries, we are just, let's just give some time. Time will heal all wounds. And that's a huge misconception, right? We have to be actively working on this every day as a school community. And I mean, now more than ever, right? We know so much of that emotional health is playing a role in our children's life. And there's so many different issues stemming from there. So then my next question to the students is, okay, so now tell me, how do you take care of your emotional injuries? And that's when everybody has that blank look and they're like, we don't know. I don't know. What are the emotional injuries, right? And then I say, well, okay, emotional injuries. Have you ever felt like a friend doesn't want to be with you or sit with you for lunch or doesn't want to do work with you? And everybody raised their hand. Oh yeah, I had that happen to me when someone didn't invite me to the birthday party or didn't want to sit with me for lunch or play with me at recess. And I say, okay, that's rejection. That's an emotional injury. How about raise your hand here if anybody feels sad sometimes? Mm-hmm. Everybody raises their hand. And I say, yeah, sadness, that's an emotional injury. Anyone here frustrated, annoyed? And everybody's like, oh yes, of course we do. I said, okay, anger is an emotional injury. Anyone here feels really badly when they make a mistake, get a bad grade, or miss the shot when they're playing a game and feel like a failure, right? And everybody's like, oh yes, I've experienced that. I said, well, failure, mistakes, these are emotional injuries, as well as loneliness, anxiety, stress, and on, grief, right? So we talk about what these emotional injuries are. And then I ask the students, so how much do you know about taking care of them? And that's when everybody realizes, okay, we know very little to nothing when it comes. So that's a huge piece for school leaders, teachers to understand that there's really a big deficit of emotional intelligence, right? We really don't know how to navigate and handle our emotions. And we're, even as adults, because we didn't have that in school, our parents, teachers, coaches, nobody had that emotional intelligence. A few had naturally, but nobody for sure had trainings. At least most of our teachers, coaches, and parents didn't. And then I asked the students, okay, so you have the physical injuries every now and again, here and there, but you don't get a cast on every day or stitches every day, not even a Band-Aid every day, right? But these emotional injuries, you go through every single day, several times a day. Yeah. And then I say, do we have at home a first aid kit? And everybody says, yes, we do. Does this classroom has a first aid kit? And the teacher's like, yes, we do. Then the nurse's office has a first aid kit. I say, okay, good. How about an emotional first aid kit? And then everybody's like, nope, we don't have that at home or here. So we create one. So that's the idea for schools, is to really create, as a school, as a part of the culture, this emotional first aid kit. So then we go on to this activity where we put together what are the emotional tools and strategies? How do we deal with things? How can we, navigate these emotional injuries in a really healthy way that doesn't include like dismissing it or distracting ourselves from it or shoving it down and trying to hide it, minimizing. So it's just a beautiful work. And then, of course, that's just the beginning of that work. And throughout the year, we go deeper. And, you would see like the most beautiful conversations happening in the classroom, the most, powerful shares happening, and just really a brave space for everyone to, to be in. And then once you have that, the listening, the respect, the trust, the kindness is all inevitable. So it's really a matter of putting these things in place and then just watch, how everyone, just, again, feel better and do better. So that's how that works.
Yeah, I really liked how you pointed that out, like just comparing it to physical injury. And we don't have the emotional first aid kits, right? And I think more so in elementary school these days than in secondary, but, you do have those breaks, the brain breaks a lot of teachers take. You can center kids sometimes with some mindfulness practice. Emotional break could just be going after recess for elementary kids, but there isn't really much of that in the high school, middle school. And that's why, the kids will ask go to the counselor a lot, and they're dealing with a lot of those peer stresses. So I think I know your work is mostly up to grade 8, but what can you suggest a middle or high school to do to maybe gain more emotional intelligence?
Teenagers and high school as well. And again, very similar, same activity. Then I do modify a little bit for the high schoolers, but it's that the same idea of really just helping them become aware of what are these issues they are dealing with, when they feel like they're the only ones dealing with these things. But when they go over the emotional injuries, and of course they, bigger children, bigger, more complex problems, right? So when I asked the students, what happens if we don't take care of our emotional injuries? And they say, oh, the same as if we don't take care of the physical injuries, they will get worse. Yeah. And I say, how do they get worse? So with the little ones, they will say things like, oh, my sadness will get worse and I'll be very sad. A 5th grade might say it could even become depression. An 8th grade, a high schooler, makes that connection with suicide, right? They see the progression. If we don't take care of things, this is where it goes. The little ones might say, if I don't take care of my anger, I will say something mean to someone. I might use my hands. 5th graders talk about, we do things we regret later. We damage relationships. We burn bridges, right? When we don't take care of that anger, it gets worse. High schoolers can make the connection with, violence of all sorts, that gun violence and, all the things that's going on. This is all, the progression. We're not taking care of these emotional injuries. And now here's what's happening, right? So they make that connection. With the high schoolers, we go over even bigger, emotional injuries that, they might be dealing with anxiety, depression, self-harming, eating disorders. So we go through, bigger things they're going through. But it's very similar. And again, they become really aware. They feel like they're not alone. They feel this non-judgmental, supportive, brave space where they can share. And then we work with the strategies for, how can we cope with all of this, but not just cope, because we don't want to just want to thrive, right? So the meditation, the yoga, the breath, the breaks, and all these things that we see happening in the early grades, they can be helpful, but often it's a bit shallow. It's it's really, things are not going deeper. Children are not really making the connections. So we do a much deeper and, work, and we have a methodology that, everybody follows, and it's really a blueprint. And like, once you follow that, it's just a beautiful, it's mental health for, comprehensive for kids. So it's a really powerful way to support them. But the beautiful part of it is that, yes, adults end up stepping into a different role. Everybody step into this bigger, better role of becoming our children or students' social emotional coaches, right? When I ask parents, who is your child's social emotional coach, right? At any of my work, and they're all looking at each other like, should we have one? Do we need to hire someone? And I say, you, right? You are your child's social emotional coach. And in a classroom or a school setting, every adult there, right? From the classroom teacher to the specials teachers, the lunch teacher, and the person monitoring recess, everyone needs to be able to step into that role, because emotional injuries are happening all the time, not just in the classroom, but outside of the classroom and during lunch, especially recess and lunch. And we had often, the teachers that are, that get less training in these things, serving those moments of the day when we have the most social emotional challenges, right? So sometimes that, the classroom teacher has all these qualifications, and then the lunch monitor, doesn't have that training. Everybody needs to really step into this bigger role. So the research tells us that our children's future success, 80% of our children's future success is going to come from right in between their ears. It's their mindset and their emotional intelligence. So when I hear that, and I explain to parents, so we're really playing very small when we busy ourselves with the cleaning, the cooking, the driving, the entertaining them, keeping them safe, keeping them busy, planning their social calendars, playing doctor when they get hurt, right? But really 80% of our interactions with our children should be coming from this place of we are giving them that invincible mindset, that unshakable sense of self, and really equipping them social emotionally, because that is what's going to move the needle for them and really make the biggest impact. And for teachers, the same thing, right? We need to see ourselves. And sometimes adults, we just don't want to see that. We're like, something to do. I'm already too busy. I have a full plate. I don't want to have to step up into another role. I'm already right? But it's so critical that we all see ourselves as our students and children's social emotional coach.
That leads me into my next topic. I wanted to talk about how to elevate parents' emotional intelligence. Sometimes parents, want to kind of go up against the school, or, if they're having difficulties in their life, they want to put the blame on the school. So how can we provide resources to parents to work with the school and have that emotionally stable atmosphere in the life with kids? And also it makes school leaders and teachers' lives easier when parents have that emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. Yes. Happy parents again.
Yeah.
Happy people are not picking fights, complaining. And, so if they feel good and confident and, they're happy, you will have easy parents, make administrators and teachers' lives much easier for sure. And I think there it's really bringing that community into the school and providing that support. So I often come in and I will do workshops for the parents. And throughout the year, there's not just the workshops, because a lot of the schools, when I start working with them, and I've talked to hundreds of schools, they say, well, we do provide these amazing resources for our parents. We have parent educational events all the time. We hire these great speakers and authors, and they come. But what they've noticed is, the attendance is really low. Yeah. And then when the parents that really need are often the ones that don't come, and then everything, even if they plan this parent educational calendar for the year, they said to me, it's very random. It's like every month there's a different author coming, and they are amazing, but they come with their one signature talk for an hour. Yeah. So it's shallow, never goes really deep. then there's no continuity between, one topic to the next throughout the year. So nothing goes, there's just that lack. It's super random. And then the parents attending it never really develop a relationship with these presenters, because every time is someone new and different. So what they've noticed is that when you offer parents a continued coaching and education for them throughout the year, and one workshop build on the next and go deeper, and that presenter develops that relationship with the parents, and then the parents develop a relationship with each other, and we create that brave space so parents can also come and share freely, then they really see the school as a partner, right? And they really get to understand that, okay, not only we are having all this training, our teachers are receiving the same content, and all these strategies we are trying to implement at home, our teachers implement in the classroom. So our work at home don't go to waste when they come to school, and the teachers feel like our beautiful work that we do here with them don't go to waste when they go home. Because I remember being in the classroom, and I used to teach in a Montessori classroom. So we were encouraging these very young children to do everything for themselves. I would watch them chop apples and serve others, polish things, clip flowers and create arrangements and put it around the classroom. They could do everything for themselves, right? Yeah. Second, that parent or the caregiver, grandma, the babysitter, whoever came to pick up that kid, they would take the backpack, the lunchbox, the child would just drop everything and expect the adults to carry for them. They would, become very clingy and then whiny, like when they were totally, confident and strong in that environment. And I remember us teachers feeling like, all this great work we do here goes to waste when they go home. And then I would also hear from parents, right, that things that they were trying to implement at home, the school just couldn't keep up with it because they didn't know.
Yeah.
So I think we eliminate all of that when we really educate the parents, and then, the teachers alongside. So everyone got that same level of, elevation in their social emotional skills and understanding the behavior and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like how you point out that lack of consistency with a lot of those parent trainings, right? I see many districts just have that one and done. And if districts can reconsider how they're going to have speakers, follow up or, have more of a forum discussion throughout the school year than just that one, presentation on this topic, it'll really help. Yeah. So we've discussed a whole lot today on emotional intelligence with students, teachers, parents, and, how we can compare that to our physical health and how taking care of our emotional health. Out of everything we talked about, what's one thing you'd like listeners to remember?
One thing I would love for everyone to remember is that every adult, to remember that we set the climate, right? We set our classrooms or in our homes, and that it's really, we have just such power. I actually have a quote here for this. It's my favorite quote. It's a Heimganu quote, and I have it in my book. And it says, "I have come to the frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element. It's my personal approach that creates the climate. It's my daily mood that makes the weather. I possess tremendous power to make life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or humor, hurt or heal. In all situations, it's my response that decides whether a crisis is escalated or de-escalated, and a person is humanized or dehumanized. If we treat people as they are, we make them worse. If we treat people as they ought to be, we help them become what they're capable of becoming." I just love this. It's my favorite quote.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, referring to your book, and where can people find your book and connect with you online?
Oh, my book you can find in any bookstore or Amazon. And you can find me in my website, which is lorenaseidel.com. Instagram, same thing, Lorena Seidel, and social media, and LinkedIn. But yeah, so it would be a pleasure and an honor to work with, all of the everyone in your community, and it's really just the work. I feel like I'm in the business of empowering leaders, right? It's just so fun, just like this quote says, like it's really, really up to us. I think that you're all, and parents and educators share a common goal, right? We all want to raise these amazing human beings who will heal humanity, right? We want these really good people. We're trying to raise these amazing human beings. So it's really, my work is all about empowering adults so they can step up into that role of raising the next generation that can heal humanity.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll make sure to put your links in the show notes. I thank you so much for being on the Out of the Trenches podcast today. It was a pleasure talking with you and learning more about emotional intelligence.
Thank you so much for having me.